Hey there, Andy here at Board Game Barrister, here to take a look at Toy Battle, a head-to-head game where two players are going to vie to be the first who can capture their opponent's headquarters. The first awesome thing you're going to see when you open this box is that there are 8 different battlefields you can choose to play on, so every time you play, those strategies for how to win are going to shift and change. They suggest starting with the basic castle battlefield for your first game, so that's what we're going to do today. Next up, you're going to put a metal token on each of the little metal symbols on the board, and then put any remaining metal tokens back in the box. We've already done that. Each player is going to grab a rack for their troops, and then it's time to actually get some troops. To do that, grab the box of troops in your color, dump them all out on the table, and turn them all face down so that you can't see what's on the front side of any of them. Shuffle them up, and then you're going to put 4 back in the box without looking at them. Next up, you'll randomly choose who goes first. The first player is going to grab 3 troops from their supply, keeping those hidden from their opponent. And your second player will do the same, but with 4 troops. That's it for setup. We're ready for the battle to begin. There are 2 different ways to win in this game, the first of which is to place any one of your troops on your opponent's HQ. The second is to collect the objective number of metal tokens before your opponent can do the same. On the castle board, we see little 7s on each side of the board here, indicating that that objective number for this battlefield is 7. And on your turn, you're going to choose one of 2 different actions. You can either draw 2 random troops from your reserve and add them into your supply rack, or you can place a troop out onto the terrain. Drawing troops is just about as simple as it sounds. You're going to choose any 2 random face-down troop tiles, and then add them into your available supply. The maximum number of troops you can have on your rack is 8, so if you already have 8, you can't take this action. And if you have 7, you can take this action, but you'll only draw 1 troop. Each troop tile in the game has a couple different elements to it. Up at the top is the strength of that troop, and that'll come into direct comparison with other troops they're trying to take territory away from. And then they have a special ability, the little icon down in the corner, which we'll talk about in a minute. Let's jump ahead in our game to take a look at the place a troop action because it's a little more complex. Every time you place a troop, you'll be placing it on a base, and bases are all of these square spots on the board that are connected by paths. You'll need to slowly create a path between those bases all the way toward your opponent's HQ if that's how you want to try to win. The first rule for placing a troop on a base is that the base you're placing it in has to be connected to your HQ by your own troops. So starting out, you can place troops on these spaces directly next to your HQ, and after that, anywhere you place a troop has to be connected by a path of your own troops all the way back to your HQ. So our blue player could not place a troop in this base right now because there's no connection back to their HQ any way they try to go. However, they could place right out here on the bridge over the river because they do have a connection back to HQ through these other troops. The second rule is that you have to be strong enough to take the base you're trying to put a troop on. That means you can always place a troop on an empty base, since there's no one to contend with there. You can always place a troop on a space that's occupied by one of your troops. And when you do that, you're going to stack your new troop on top of the previous troop. The troop on top of a stack is always the one currently occupying that base. And only that troop is occupying that base. So while we can look back at what troops have been played here before, they don't count toward the current strength of that base. Only our top occupying troop does. Next up, you can place a troop on a base that's occupied by one of your enemy troops, but only if the troop you're placing has a higher strength than the enemy troop that's currently occupying that base. Being an even value with them doesn't cut it. So our red player could take control of this base by placing a 7 over the top of their enemy's 5. This base is now occupied by this red 7, and the blue troops under it are no longer considered to be occupying that base. Lastly, you can place a troop on your enemy's HQ spot, and you're never allowed to place a troop on your own HQ, so there's no way to defend that spot with a high strength unit. You just have to keep your opponent away long enough to win it before they can. The last thing to know about placing a troop is that sometimes by placing a troop, you'll take control of a region. Regions are all of the areas on the board that are enclosed entirely by paths and that we put metal tokens on at the beginning of the game. When you place a troop such that you now occupy all of the bases surrounding one of those regions, you get to collect all the metal tokens in that region. So our red player, by placing this red 7, just took control of the third and final base surrounding this region here. They're going to take this metal token. And metal tokens are permanent. There's no way for your opponent to take that back from you, even if they gain control of this region in the future. Remember, on this board, 7 metal tokens will win the game, So don't just think about your opponent's HQ, they can also win it by taking enough medals. Now that you know the basics of a turn and troop placement, it's time to talk about all those special abilities. Hey folks, sorry to interrupt, this is just a 15-second reminder that we're a small team of board game lovers running an actual board game shop here in Wisconsin. If you like what we do, you can support us directly by shopping with us online or by stopping in the next time you're in our area. Thank you! Alright, back to your video. First up, we've got Quack. Quack the Duck is a wild card Joker troop, meaning that this troop can be placed on top of any strength opposing troop, but your opponent can also place any strength troop on top of it. He's great for finishing off a region or breaking through that final line of defense for your opponent's HQ, but he doesn't hold the line very well if you're trying to defend your own. Next, we've got Scully the Skeleton, who's going to bring more troops up from the reserve. Right after you play Scully, you're going to take 2 more troops from your face-down reserve and put them in your supply, just like as if you'd taken the draw 2 troops action this turn. And it follows all the same rules as far as how many troops you can have maximum. So if you already have 8 troops in your rack, Scully will do nothing for you. Next up is Cap'n, who's going to bring company. Right after you play Cap'n, you'll apply his special effect, which is to play 1 more troop this turn. That next troop has to follow all the normal rules for troop placement, but this can be a great way to take a lot of territory all at once, or build a quick connection out to a tactical base and make sure your opponent can't make a rush for your HQ. That second troop we just put out was Jumbo the Robot, who has a very strong ability. When you play Jumbo, you'll activate his special effect, which is to discard 1 adjacent enemy troop face up next to the board. Next up is Hook the Paratrooping Monkey. Hook's ability is that, as you play him, you can place him in any base ignoring the connection to HQ rule. So if we wanted, this Hook could jump all the way back to the enemy lines. Keep in mind your enemy's HQ is not a base, so you can't place Hook in your enemy's HQ, that makes sense. And any follow-on troops you place do still need to have a connection to your HQ in order to be placed. So just by placing a Hook here doesn't mean I now have a way into my opponent's base for any of my other troops, because I can't follow a connected path all the way back to my HQ. Star the Unicorn is also going to bring extra troops along. After you play Star, you'll draw 1 troop from your reserve and place it onto your rack. And last is Roxy the Dinosaur. Roxy has no special ability except to be the strongest tile in the game. Can't argue with a big 7-strength dinosaur. So each time you place a troop, you'll be applying their special effect as well, and these can make some huge swings on the battlefield, even those weaker strength troops have really strong abilities. The last thing to know is that some of the bases on the board also have little icons on them to indicate special abilities. The player aid in the box tells you what all the abilities for the troops as well as the terrain's special bases are, and each different battlefield will have different special abilities for those bases. In the case of our castle field here, every time a player places a troop onto one of these special bases, they get the Drums Sound the Retreat special ability, which means that they can take any of their troops currently occupying a base somewhere out on the board and place it back onto their rack. I say occupying troops to indicate that none of these special board effects can ever interact with a troop that's already been covered up. So just because your opponent plays a Quack on top of your really strong 7-strength Roxy, you wouldn't be able to retreat Roxy back to your rack in that case. Alright, and that's all you need to know about Toy Battle. Remember, there's 2 ways to win, so while your opponent's HQ looks really enticing to try and go for, collecting medals is just as strong a strategy and might even catch your opponent off guard. Toy Battle's available in our online shop now. I hope you get to try it out. Really appreciate you joining me for this Learn to Play video. Hit that like button if you appreciate what we do. Leave a comment if you have questions, or just a comment. We love reading those. Hit subscribe if you want to see more videos every week when we post them. And thanks again for joining me. We'll see you next time.